Um, um, I'm myself. I will admit I'm not a very big, formal meditator. Nowhere as progressed as a lot of people in this forum. Um, you know, so whatever I will share will be based upon what I have reflected upon, on the basis of what Swami's Vahini encapsulates. So please feel free to interject, to ask questions, share during the study circle today. Um, so the first thing, when you read the Vahini, um, it was very interesting how in the very first chapter, in the very first page, how the topic starts. And I'll tell you in a minute why I found that interesting, because you know um, Swami starts with talking about how people have to be doing some action or karma, or the other, right? From the moment of waking to the moment of sleeping. That is to say, from birth to death. You cannot sit quietly without doing any action. No one can avoid this predicament. But each one has to understand clearly which kind of action to be engaged in, obviously, right? Dr. Arun, in the previous study circle, you remember he spoke about this as well, the two types of actions, basically sensory or binding actions, or there are actions that liberate, right? These two things. um, and the liberating action, obviously, it's characterized by the importance given to the idea of action without any desire of the fruits thereof. Elaborated beautifully in Gita, the Nishkam karma that we speak about. So then Swami says, while on this path, that is the path of liberating action or Nishkam karma, if one also takes up the discipline of remembering the name of the Lord, where else can one acquire more joy and bliss? It will give the fullest satisfaction. That's how the Japa Dhyana starts, in the Vahini, with the preface first on the action. So how Swami, doesn't just say, sit quietly, meditate. He connects it with Nishkam karma. In fact, he talks of liberating action first before bringing in Japa and Dhyana. And why? Because the way I understood it is, you need to be engaged in nishkam karma to develop the chitta shuddhi, right, that we speak about, which you need for dhyana. In other words, what is liberation action? And it is basically what constitutes our duty, right, our kartavya karma that we speak about, whether you're a student, a householder, a senior citizen, whatever may be the situation in which you find yourself, doing it to the best of our ability and then offering it to him. Um, I'm reminding of, the Sanskrit shloka, which we often recite growing up, whenever you had any puja or religious ceremony back home in India, when we were growing up, when the puja, sort of culminates or ends, we would sing this shloka, which I like to just chant quickly, which kind of summarizes this concept. It goes like Kayena vacha manasendriyerva buddhyatmana va prakrti swabhavat करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणेति समर्पयामि. Basically, kain means body, vacha means speech, manas, obviously mind, indriyat, sense organ. So whatever I do with my body, speech, mind, or sense organs, whatever I do using my intellect, my feelings of the heart, or even unconsciously through the natural tendencies of my mind, right? Subhav, whatever my nature, whatever I do for others, all of that, I surrender them all at the lotus feet of Narayana. And then Chitta Shuddhi, the second thing, basically is, we understand as purity of mind. Chitta is obviously pure, universal consciousness, which becomes clouded by ego, desire, thoughts. And as we need this to help calm our mind so that when we engage in dhyana, we are not agitated, right? So that's the connection to the Nishkam karma, how it helps us develop this. So the first page of Vahini was quite interesting for me because coincidentally on 2 days ago on Friday, I was driving and I was listening to a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and chapter 3 was going on, and Arjuna asks Krishna, right there, he says, hey, look, it appears you're trying to imply that jnana is superior to karma or action. So why are you even asking me to act, right? Let me just go straight jump to, obviously he was trying to avoid what he was supposed to do. He said, why are you asking me to act? You know, and it was obviously a false comparison because you need to act first. You need to be engaged in Nishkam Karma to prepare yourself to receive the Jnana. Um, and Swami says further, he says the best means for following liberating actions is meditation. Today people with newfangled ideas argue about how meditation is to be done and why it should be done, but they know neither its taste nor its purity. That is why there is so much criticism and cynical laughter. And the intention for Dhyanavayini said is to instruct such people. Therefore, I'm revealing this. And he likens the inner consciousness with a cart. Obviously, if you read Swami's, as we read Swami's literature, often, it comes up, he'll draw similes, examples to make the point clearer. So he likens the inner consciousness with a cart that is pulled, when two bullocks are yoked to it. These are the intelligence, the buddhi, and the manas, the mind. So earlier than the journey, the bullocks, the intelligence and the mind should be conversant, right, with the road, with the path to the village that the inner senses are eager to reach. They must be trained to proceed in that direction. If this is done, the journey will be easy and safe. Instead, if the draft animals have no knowledge of the pathways, of whatever we face in life, of truth, righteousness, peace, and love, and they've never trodden on that path, the cart or the inner senses themselves, they'll come to grief. So intelligence and mind have to be taught the art of pulling the cart and moving steadily along the road. And this is done by repetition of the Lord's name, japa, and meditation. Um, of course, the mind flies in all directions, in all tangents at all the time. So dhyana is a process by which it's trained to acquire that concentration, right? So, obviously, a natural question then comes up. What is then meditation, and what do we think is the goal, ultimate purpose of doing japa and dhyana? That's when Swami launches into that next. Um, I don't know. Maybe we've done a few sessions. Would would someone like to take a stab at it? Anything that they would like to share in their understanding? What is meditation? What is the goal or the purpose of japa and dhyana? I'm just opening it up for a minute. Please don't feel shy. Can everyone hear me? I hope.
Yes, Sachin bhai.
Okay. One thing I was wondering, let me see if maybe what this will probably prompt something. I wanted to share something that Swami has said on this. Let me see if I can share. I believe I should be able to share a YouTube clip. Is that Sundari? Is that right, or will the sound not come? Do you want me to try? Let me share.
Yeah, try it.
See if it works.
Share it with share when you share your screen.
Yeah.
You share it with the audio.
Okay. Let me see if this works.
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you hear it?
No, you can, because I think you've not shared with me the audio on.
Okay, 1 second.
Hi, Ram.
Sairam auntie.
This is Shanti. Um, all of you know that I've been meditating since 1965. So, or even earlier, I don't know. The way it started was my father was very concerned that I hadn't got married. So he took me to somebody and to ask, what should we do? We have to find a boy and so on and so forth. He was panicking. So what he did was took me to a puja room where we met in somebody's house and gave me this and said, you're not going to tell this to anybody, but you do this 108 times every day. So I have been doing this for many years, and this is on Lord Ganesha. And while meditating, a lot of thoughts come into you. Whatever has happened in your life, maybe even past, future, everything comes into you. And one of the thoughts that came today, I mean, I have seen many places. I've seen the 8 continents. I've seen 50 states in this country. One of the states that I've been there is a waterfall called Weeping, and that is called Weeping Rock. And I'm telling Baba, how can you call this a weeping rock when it is so beautiful? And we have a conversation. There are tears of joy when I say this. I can still see the rock and the water dropping, and I'm meditating there. I've really meditated there. It's not that it's a film or something that I've done it. But this is now a film when he shows. And I'm saying, this is a wrong thing to say, a beautiful thing, why call it weeping rock? Then he says, when you weep alone, you will see the joy.
Mm-hmm.
I was wonderstruck by that. It's so true that when you cry out, it washes out so much of the muck that you have created in your mind. It is unbelievable. Even if you can meditate for 5 minutes, clean your mind. It takes a long time. But for somebody who's very fortunate, they might get it right away. But it is so beneficial. It's like cleaning, when you take a silver platter and you put in the to clean it, how shining it comes out. That's how your mind will be when you don't have to rub anything, nothing, but just sit and contemplate on him. Take any name, any mantra, try it. The result is so much that you'll feel, why didn't I do it earlier? That's how you'll feel. But I'm telling you, it is beautiful. And he explains to the T, because we are all at a baby steps. It's not that I have reached anywhere. I can go anywhere, do anything, but I'm bound by him, bound by his love, and he'll show you the way like he would show a small child. He lays it out, and shows the ABC of life. I would urge everybody, if you can even meditate for 5 minutes, that's all. You will see the wonders. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Auntie. Absolutely. I think in the end, theory goes only so far. You have to start. So let me try to see if this works. Oh, I'll give one more try. Let me change it to the display audio and now share the screen again. Okay. Can you hear this?
We can see it's Sachin bhai.
Could you hear
No
this?
volume.
No volume.
Sandri or Sandeep, if you
No, we
don't
can
mind.
hear.
Volume थोड़ा बढ़ाइए Sachin bhai.
Can you send me the, are you able to share it with the volume or something? It says with the
Stop
audio.
sharing.
Did you click on that share? When you're sharing your screen, there'll be a small check box you need to do saying share it with audio or something like that.
Yeah, so I tried to change the audio to the display audio. You're saying, the up arrow, right? Next to mute, select a speaker.
No, not that one. See, like 1 second, when I share it, it says share sound. And when you click, it says
share computer sound.
Correct. Share sound and optimize for video clip. There'll be 2 small boxes.
Yes.
Check them.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me try again.
One sits in meditation.
Perfect.
What is meditation?
జీవితంలో సర్వము ధ్యానమే.
In life, everything is meditation.
ఆఫీసుకు పోతున్నావు, ఆఫీసులో పని చేస్తున్నావు.
You go to the office and work there.
అక్కడ ధ్యానం లేకపోతే ఆఫీస్ పని ఏ రీతిగా చేయగలవు?
When you don't meditate on your work, how do you do that?
ఈ ఆఫీసుకు పోయే సమయంలో కారును రోడ్ లోపల డ్రైవ్ చేసుకుని పోతున్నావు.
While going to the office, you drive your
ఈ
way.
డ్రైవ్ చేసే సమయంలో నీకు రోడ్డు పైన ధ్యానం లేకపోతే నువ్వు ఏ రీతిగా డ్రైవ్ చేయగలవు?
While driving, if you don't concentrate, how do you
కనుక
reach?
ధ్యానం అంటే ఏమిటి?
What is meant by
వాకింగ్,
meditation?
టాకింగ్, రీడింగ్, రైటింగ్, ఈటింగ్, ఎవ్రీథింగ్ ఇస్ ధ్యానమే.
Walking, talking, reading, writing, everything is meditation.
అనగా ఒక్క విషయం పైన మనసును లగ్నం చేయటమే ధ్యానము అని.
Meaning concentrating on one thing
విద్యార్థుల
is
ధ్యానం అంతా
meditation.
ఒక చదువు పైన,
Student concentrates on study.
తల్లి ధ్యానం అంతా బిడ్డల పైన,
Mother concentrates on the child.
గృహస్థుల ధ్యానం అంతా కుటుంబం పైన,
Householder concentrates on
కార్మికుని
family.
ధ్యానం అంతా కూడా మిషన్ల పైన, కర్షకుని ధ్యానం అంతా కూడా భూమి పైన. అట్టే ఒక్కొక్కరిది ఒక్కొక్క విధమైన ధ్యానంగా ఉంటుండాలి.
Farmer concentrates on the field, like that each one concentrates on one aspect.
కనుకనే అదే విధంగానే నీ యొక్క మనసును భగవంతుని పైన లగ్నం చేయి.
Similarly, you concentrate on God.
అంతేకాని నిరంతరం కూడా నువ్వు ఏదో చేస్తున్నావనుకొని నీవు భగవంతుని పని చేయటం లేదని అనుకోకూడదు.
While discharging your duty, you should never
ఏ
feel that
పని
you are not
చేసినా
serving
ఇది
God.
భగవంతుని పని.
Whatever you may do, it's God's service.
ఈ విధంగా సర్వకర్మ భగవత్ ప్రీత్యార్థమని భావించు.
You consider that all actions are offered to God.
నీవు భూమిని దున్నుతున్నావు రైతువై.
You till the land as the farmer.
ఇదంతా నా యొక్క హృదయ భూమిని నేను సాగు చేస్తున్నాను అనుకో.
You are tilling the field of your heart.
దాంట్లో విత్తనములు చల్లుతున్నావు.
You just sow the seed.
నా హృదయ భూమి లోపల నేను సరైనటువంటి యొక్క మంచి విత్తనములు చల్లుకుంటున్నాను, సద్గుణమైనటువంటి విత్తనం చల్లుకుంటున్నాను అనుకో.
I am sowing the seeds of good thoughts in the field of my heart.
దీనిని అభివృద్ధి గావించుకోవాలనుకుంటూ నీరు కడుతున్నావు.
To develop it, you also
నా
water it.
ప్రేమ జలమును దీనికి కడుతున్నాను అనుకో.
I am supplying
ఈ
the water
విధంగా
of love.
ఒక్కొక్క వ్యక్తి కూడాను ఆధ్యాత్మిక మార్గంలో ప్రవేశించాలనుకుంటే జపమాల పట్టుకోనక్కర్లేదు, ఒంటరిగా కూర్చోనక్కర్లేదు, అరణ్యానికి పోవనక్కర్లేదు. తన యొక్క పని యందే తన యొక్క దివ్యత్వాన్ని సందర్శించవచ్చు.
To lead a spiritual life, one need not sit in solitude, one need not lead any kind of japamala, but one can lead the spiritual life.
Yeah, so essentially, Swami is, simplifying this. If you thought anything we're doing, right, can be turned into meditation, and the key obviously is ekagrata, one-pointedness. Another beautiful example, in the Vahini, he gives it of a fly, right? The mind about the wandering indiscriminately. Like the fly. The fly dwells in the sweetmeat shop and runs after the rubbish carts. The fly that has such a mind has to be taught to understand the sweetness of the first place and the impurity of the second place, so that it may not, desert the sweetmeat shop and pursue the rubbish cart. And when such a teaching is important to the mind, that's meditation. Um, Coming to the purpose fruits, obviously, yes, we hear, meditation, dhyana helps improve memory, helps you, do your job better. But ultimately, Swami says the single fruit of repetition of divine name and meditation is this: the conversion of the outfaced into the infaced, right? The turning of the inward of one's eye, to be more, seeking the answers inside than running outside for the answers. Um, and for this transformation, one has to be always active and hopeful, regardless of the time taken and the difficulties encountered. So this patience itself, the waiting itself, is part of the tapas of meditation. We cannot obviously expect wonders, in a short time. Um, and so we also, I think, in the previous session, once we talked about the role of, the mental training and the body training when we do dhyana. Um, Here again, there's a beautiful example. He says, once you learn to ride a motorcycle, you can ride on any road and under all conditions. But when you're just learning to ride for your own safety and for the safety of those around you, you have to select an open parade ground, right? Something where you can easily practice. And you have to follow certain principles of balance. This is essential. So too, those who engage in meditation practice and the sadhana have to follow a certain course of training. So that's why sometimes when we say, obviously depending upon if your body allows, the sitting postures, sometimes we talk about how you should, try to focus, how you should sit. Those are what helps us get into the habit. Obviously for the expert spiritual aspirant, um, meditation is easy in any pose, but for the novice, such physical means are essential, and that's why they're talked about. Um, a couple of other things that I found quite interesting and appealing, and I just noted them down. So let me share these 4 or 5 snippets. First one is, Swami says, repeating the name is safest and easiest, right? Nowadays, many aspirants are discarding the name and taking up, difficult yoga and breath control or pranayama. These are things that may be fraught with dangers. To follow them correctly is difficult. Even if correctly followed, preserving and protecting the fruits achieved in these is even more difficult. If people grope in the water while not, while spreading the net on the bank, can they find fish on the net? To give up repetition of the name and faith in that path, and to sit in yoga and penance is, is not recommended as, hoping to catch fish by this means. So if the name is taken as the refuge and support, he can be realized tomorrow, if not today. If the name of a thing is known, the thing itself can be easily acquired. But if the name is not known, even if the thing is right in front of you, it cannot be recognized. Essentially saying, you know, namasmarna japa is the easiest. So why not do it? Second thing that I found quite appealing, he's saying avoid no pointedness and many pointedness. Right? No pointedness meaning obviously the tamoguna aspect, where like the stage of sleep. It is called the quality of ignorance. Basically, you just don't have any goal. And many pointedness, you are restless, rajoguna, right? Turning the vision of the opened eye on creation and everything around you. Instead of that, it's the one pointedness that obviously Swami was also talking about in the clip when he was talking about concentration. um, the third thing, simple and effective, he says stick to one name and form. but do not change the name and the form to suit the fancy and have one thing one day, another the next. Whatever the name and form that first gave you contentment, hold fast to them without swerving. They will get implanted in the heart without fail. Afterward, everything will happen through His grace, as Shanti Aunty was saying, right? You start and then He will guide. Afterward, everything will happen through His grace. If workers are ordered to dig the earth, their work is simply to go on digging. The gardener alone knows how much of the earth is to be put under which plant and how the earth has to be put, etc., etc. So too, the order is to constantly dwell on His name. Provided you continue to do that work, He Himself will direct, where and how that has to be utilized. Leave that to Him. Fourth, Swami says, everything is pure, everything is God. Don't entertain in your mind the idea of purity and impurity while doing the spiritual practice or meditation. There's nothing impure in this world, per se. When the Lord is immanent everywhere and is in everything, how can anything be impure? Even if something appears to the our external eye as impure, the moment it contacts the name of the Lord, it becomes purified. So purity and impurity are the result of mental reactions of a particular moment. When one is giving, for example, money to someone, one talks, you can talk about auspicious time and the purity of the hour. But when one gets a chance to take money, every moment is auspicious. So meaning, these are differences that are sometimes created in our mind. And the mind is the reason for both these attitudes. Similarly, no thought of purity or impurity will bother you if you have full faith in the love and the name of the Lord. On the other hand, if you feel some compulsion and some discontent, all kinds of possible and impossible obstacles will present themselves. So give up, let's give up all these feelings, strengthen the faith in the unshakable holiness of the name, um, and firmly believe that everything is made holy by His name. Um, and the last thing that I wanted to share was cultivate good habits before concentration, he says. Again, very simple, but profound, because he says form is fundamental, right, for concentration and meditation. Even in the absence of the form in front of you, you should have the capacity to visualize it. This is not so difficult for those whose concentration is correct, but some practice concentration without first cultivating good habits and right conduct. That is the sign of incomplete knowledge. Because concentration must have the pure qualities, right? The sattva gunas as the basis. The mind has to be purified by proper treatment of the character through good habits. Concentration has to follow this purification process, not precede it, right? It cannot come before that. And all effort for concentration without cleansing the mind is a sheer waste of time. And he warns, he says, many great men have ruined their careers by aspiring early for concentration without the discipline of good habits. So again, if I just to repeat those 4 or 5 subtopics. Number one, repeating the name is safest and simplest or easiest. Number two, avoid no pointedness and many pointedness. Stick to one name and form. Everything is pure, everything is God, and cultivate good habits before concentration. It goes back again, if I tie back where I started from, right? Good habits, right conduct means nishkam karma, right? Liberating actions. They have to come first before we jump into dhyana and concentration because they prepare you for this stage. So these were some of my reflections um, from what I have understood. I think we have about 20 minutes left. Um, I'm open to any suggestions. We can share some thoughts, some ideas from the audience here. Um, or I have about a 15-18 minute clip of Swami again, referring or talking about Jyoti meditation. We can play either what would everyone prefer? Should we go around?
Sachin, I had a question for you. So what were your any personal, experience when you were doing all this, listening to it, anything that struck you, anything that kind of helped you when you embarked on this journey? Any personal thing would always experience is
Yeah,
always powerful for us.
and I thought that the clip that in the Swami's clip that I was playing was especially um, I was connected to it, especially because, as I said, I have not been able to regularly sit yet. I would say yet, always aspiring to do it. But what I've seen personally, what I've experienced is that um, anything that I'm doing, whether it is secular, let's say in my job, in my career outside, or when I'm doing something connected to the organization or connected to Swami's activities, if whenever and to the extent I can, if I have developed one pointedness that is focused on that and that thing only at that time, it does wonders. It does play, the you may not have to yearn for a result, but the result invariably comes out better than you expected. That has been my experience so far. I hope to essentially do a bit more um, formal sitting down and doing meditation to kind of get this further along, as has been recommended. um, but yeah, that's where I am at the moment. But I'm happy to also listen to everyone's experience, and if then somebody has people who've been doing this for some time, if they can share some of their experiences or what they have learned, the pitfalls to avoid.
Sachin
Sandeep.
Bhai, great study circle, and thank you for sharing such a great, Swami's message as well. I was reading one of the Shirdi, science Charita, and what Swami says about meditation, like you just said, Japa Dhyan, and what does mean for us. Swami says, cultivate the conscious of the one. And he explains what that means. He says, Krishna is called Yogeshwara, Lord of the yogis in the Bhagavad Gita. So, what does that mean? Yogi is defined by Patanjali as the control of the agitations of the mind. If the mind is stilled and free from waves produced by the wind of desire, then one becomes a yogi. So we all have to focus on how we can really transcend to yogi. And the Lord is the highest yogi, for he is the ocean that is unaffected by the waves that agitate the surface. It is said that Krishna danced on the hood of the serpent Kalia and forced it to throw up its poison. In other words, he forced sensual desires to divest their pernicious effects. Yoga of this type is the best means of attaining the Yogeshwara, the Lord of the yogis. So, what he says, control of senses and not the control of the breath is the prescription, is the key. So, he says, transcend anektatva bhava, the consciousness of the many, and cultivate ekatvatva bhava, the consciousness of the one. That will end strife, grief, pain, and pride. So, I mean, Swami really puts into perspective that it's not about controlling your breath, it's you're controlling your desires. That will help you to become a yogi. And that's what the Lord Krishna actually exemplify in what we learn from the Gita as well. How we can control our senses. That will really help us to eliminate all our grief, pain, and the pride. Sairam.
Yeah, no, thanks. And it was a beautiful example. I mean, I obviously we've learned of the story of Kalia Nag, but the way you you sort of explained it, I think I'd never thought of it that way. You know, the throwing of the poison, meaning the throwing up of all the those sensory binding um, qualities that is sort of signified by. And I think there's another thing that Swami says. Obviously, when you start things, you shouldn't you shouldn't get disheartened by why you're not achieving absolute samadhi in the very first sitting. Your mind will wander, and it is natural. That's why it's called the monkey mind. But all you have to do is just persevere, right? Bring it back to the form, bring it back to the name, again and again, and all it needs is practice. Obviously, again, this is all theory we are talking about. Swami also then goes on to say that you have to start. Without that, without jumping into it, everything else is useless. Then that just becomes theory without you actually starting it. Anybody, anyone else? We have you know s-
Saram, Sachin, this is Radha. I think you just hit on the key. There's so many paths to meditation, and there people try to get just the right formula and say, well, no, I couldn't do it this way, so it's not going to work today. Well, let me try this, and let me read this book, and let me see what so and so says. The point is that you just have to start and be in the moment. I mean, I think meditation is almost just being mindful. Whenever you're in the moment, you are meditating, because then you're focusing on what's happening in the present. So meditation isn't this formal thing that you have to carve out time for and designate a space in your home and make it a big deal. It's really just being in the moment. It can happen anywhere, anytime, and it can be constant then. But so I think we need to move away from formalizing it and making it just practical, and it can be very simple. So the important thing is just being, just wherever you are, just focus on your breath and just enjoy the moment, and then you will be meditating. Sairam.
Thank you. Yeah, that's quite simply and elegantly put, Radhaji. I think that's the sense we have to. And what easier, better way to start than that? Slowly. Um,
In my thing, Sairam, Sachin, it was a beautiful study circle, and you brought in all these good points. And again, Radha also said that you don't have to confine yourself to a certain thing. This is the only way to do it. Sometimes I feel like Swami just pushes us when we definitely yearn for that, that we need to connect with him. He definitely gives us all the tools in our own way that appeals to each of us. To me, I feel like sometimes, like a bhajan that comes to me and says, I have to learn that bhajan. There is that intense feeling in me that I have to not master it, at least get it into my head, which means I really need to focus on the bhajan, learn it line by line and the tune and everything. And internally, I feel like at that moment, I'm definitely having that communication, that conversation, and the clarity and practice. It's nothing but meditation sometimes. So those are the different ways that we can weave in the concept of meditation into our practice as to whatever appeals to us, like what Radha and you all talked about. So for me, I feel like when I have to learn a new bhajan, it's intense at that moment, and I feel that's my meditation space. That's my space for meditation. I am meditating, I'm having those conversations, I'm having those that connect with Swami, because there's this overwhelming feeling of bliss, peace, and it's almost like Swami is standing right in front of you, and have it, and you can feel him. That's how I feel. Sairam.
yeah, and I don't know if you can call it yearning, but I couldn't get to it. But in the Vahini, there's a lot of space Swami has devoted on this. He calls it yearning. That yearning has to be there first, right? That is what propels you to what you spoke about. I connected it with that. Sorry, I didn't get time to dwell on it, but there's a lot of content on this as well in Dhyan Vahini actually. So it's definitely connected. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sairam, um, you may meditate, of course, every day you pray, but there are certain places where it like gives you a slap on your face and say, here I am. And in my life, there are three places which is so sacred. I mean, I would tell them to go and meditate there, but it is not possible. But God has given me that choice. One, of course, is the Himalayas. It is super charged. You can just say anything and you will see it. The second place is in Egypt, the pyramids. When we went to the pyramids, there was, and I said, I came to my sense that I have to meditate here. And there was 5 miles line that we had to stand. And I said, I'll never get to that. They said it'll take about 3 or 4 hours. We didn't have that kind of a time. Said, Swami takes care of it. Somebody comes and says, I don't know what made them. They said, show me your ticket. And I showed my ticket. He said, go. And we were allowed to go inside. And of course, I got my wishful thinking of that I want to meditate, went there, did my meditation, beautiful. And while coming up, there's a man, I mean, I hate to talk like this. He was so huge. With a key in his hand, that was a key to the pyramids. And he would say, go, go. And when I came to him, don't ask me why, he let me touch that key. I kissed the key and I said, Sairam, there were tears of joy when I came out. And the next one was in Antarctica. I said, God exists everywhere, but you feel his presence in certain places. That is a third place. There's nothing but snow. And they said, go out and see. There's called a Paradise Island. What is Paradise Island? Is one block of ice, huge. I said, what is this paradise? When you start meditating, and then of course, it's unbelievable what he shows, because then we see all the little animals and everything, and you meditate. These are the 3 big places that I have felt his presence so strong. Sometimes I feel like crying. Oh my God, I know I'll never go to these places again, but you relive on these places. So meditation does wonders for your mind, takes away all the little things that is bothering you and cleans up. This is what meditation does to you. Sairam.
Sairam, thank you, Auntie. Yeah, definitely. I think there's some places which, as I think Dr. Arun once put it when he was talking about pilgrimage places, there are some places where the bandwidth is so wide, it's easy to tap into it. How about someone else before we close? Sushant or anybody? Okay, so I think we're.
Sairam, I have nothing to say about silence. Sairam.
You're in
Sairam, I
Dhyana.
just wanted to, it's Radha again. I just want to make another point. Sometimes we think that everything has to be perfect before we can start meditating. You've got to finish your chores, you've got to find a quiet place, you can't have anything on your mind and this and that. And it's a little hard to find that perfection before we start. anyway, that's how it is for me. You know, I'll do it, but everything has to be just right. However, most recently, I have learned that when you're faced with adversity, the only solace you have is meditation. So by turning adversity into a blessing, I think you can see meditation in practice. And that's just from personal experience. So you don't have to wait for just the right moment. If you can, when so many negative things are happening around you, personally or in the environment or anything, and it just seems like one thing after another is coming at you, you have no choice but to go within. And that is the best time to meditate. So sometimes I think the universe, puts us in a place where it says, forget perfection. I'm going to give you all of these things until you get the message. And then when you go within, that's the only time you find peace. So I would say that in the face of adversity, we are forced to meditate, and that's when we can find true peace. Sairam.
Sairam, thank you. Yes, absolutely. So I think we are 2-3 minutes away. Sandeep, closing prayers would
Yeah, you want me to do closing prayers?
yes, please. Should we?
Oh Lord, take my love, let it flow in fullness, devotion to Thee. Oh Lord, take my hands, let them work ceaselessly for
Peacefully
Thee.
for thee.
O Lord, take my soul, let it be merged in perfect oneness with Thee. O Lord, take my mind, let me thoughts in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument for Thee. Om Tassa Sri Narayana Tu Purushottam Guru Tu Siddha Buddha Tu Skanda Vinayak Savita Pavak Tu Savita Pavak Tu Brahmamazatu Yav Shakti Tu Yeshu Pita Prabhu Tu Rudra Vishnu Tu Ram Krishna Tu Rahim Tao Tu Rahim Tao Tu वासुदेव गोवेश्वरूप तु चिदानंद हरि तू आदित्य तु अकाल निर्भय आत्मलिंग शिव तू आत्मलिंग शिव तू बाबा आत्मलिंग शिव तू ओम शांति 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 बोलो श्री भगवान श्री सत साईं बाबा जी की
Jai.
जय
Yeah.
साई राम
Sairam.
Sairam.
Sairam.